goddamn get it on, will ya? Woo. When the blow up now, everybody's so unusual with it. Shit. But said times in his rhymes, cause his memories. We running through New York.
Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be doing the M57 reliability, which is the M for mother reliability video of 2020. Now, as many of you guys know, I have done this video before. It wasn't great, wasn't clear, and it also was on a more crappier camera than what we're actually using now for the latest videos. So I'm going to be redoing this video for a lot of you guys who didn't actually get to see or hear what I actually said on that video on the M57 reliability. So I'm going to go over and I'm going to show you all the things to actually look for in this engine and what actually makes this engine reliable for you if you're in the market for a BMW with the M57 engine, and what you must do to keep this engine reliable, and if it's more reliable than actually you buying a petrol version or the 2-litre diesel version. So as many of you guys will see here, this is the M57 engine. I have left the engine cover on. I am going to be taking it off because I need to show you guys a few components and how to make this engine reliable and how it can actually be reliable and why it is reliable. But I'm just showing you, this is the M57 engine. You guys will know it just from the engine cover alone. This is in an X5 and an E53 as well, as many of you guys probably already know as well. And this is the engine we're going to be focusing on today for this video. So let's get that engine cover off, and I'm going to go over the things that make this engine reliable and how to make it reliable for you people if you're looking to purchase one of these. So here we have it guys, the M57 engine, and this is what is revealed under that engine cover. And this is the engine a lot of you guys asked me before you're going to buy if this engine is a reliable unit, and should you buy this over the petrol variant, should you buy this over the 2-litre variant. This engine is super reliable, very reliable, and there's a reason why, and there's many things that actually make this engine reliable based on your ownership. So guys, as many of you guys know, this is the M57 engine, and it's very highly regarded as one of the best diesel engines ever put into a BMW engine. And if many of you guys know, the Turkish army, a lot of the armies around the world have this engine in their Jeeps that they use to transport their soldiers and to transport stuff, and these have gone hundreds of thousands of miles with no issues. What makes them reliable is you and maintenance. That's what makes them reliable, the same as it would for any engine, be it a petrol or a diesel. They do have their normal problems, which I'm going to go over, and you can easily take care of them before they even go wrong. And the things that you need to do on these engines to keep them reliable is very simple. The first one is, a lot of people buy these because of the stereotype remap. Do not think of buying one of these and remapping them. If many of you guys know, BMW already have the gearbox on these at their full maximum torque limit. Remapping them is not good for these engines whatsoever, and I tell this to you guys all the time about this. Do not go and buy one of these cars if you're thinking to remap it, because that's what a lot of people consider buying this car for, because their friends got it and it's remapped and it produces this, produces that. Later down the line, they're going to have issues with their gearbox and with the engine destroying itself. People don't believe me, and then I get a lot of people who have got remap M57s, and the majority of you guys are the ones that are going to watch this video hoping you're going to find your problem and hoping that it's going to fix your issues because you remapped your car. Well, if you didn't have remapped it, you wouldn't have half the issues you're having now. I say this all the time, and I will keep saying it. Don't buy this car to remap it. These cars are not made to be remapped. If you want a fast car, you buy an M5 or an M3. That's what BMW make the M division cars for. You don't buy a diesel to remap it to get the same power of an M3 and M5. This is why these cars can't handle it, and this is what makes them unreliable. And anyone who comes and tells me the M57 is unreliable is because they neglected the engine and they don't know what they're doing. They were irresponsible and shouldn't have owned this engine to begin with. So the first thing that makes this engine reliable is this right here, which is the EGR. As you'll see, I've got it all blanked off, and you guys would have seen on the video that we did that. We blanked all the EGR system off, and I believe that's a lot better for the intake itself and for the engine, because as you guys know, the EGR just recirculates the harmful gases and all the crap, which is all, these get carbon build up very bad, and it sends it back into the intake manifold, which is why I'm going to move on to the next one, which is about the swirl flaps on these. Now, as many of you guys know, you would have seen my other video, And this car from 2005 all the way up to 2006 didn't have swirl flaps anymore. BMW removed them. This is an E53, it doesn't have them. A lot of people are telling me their E53 does. If they're in the EU, they will have, because the EU have different regulations for emissions, therefore they have to have them. But this one didn't have them. You guys seen it didn't have no swirl flap rail, no nothing on it, no vacuum line for the swirl flaps whatsoever underneath on this manifold. That's because these cars do not come with it, and it says so even on real OEM that this car wasn't fitted with swirl flaps from the factory. But a lot of you guys do have them, and this is what brings me to the next problem that with the EGR. So the EGR returns all the harmful gases and exhaust gases back into the manifold, which, as you guys know, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good. It also drags the carbon back into the manifold, which in turn gets stuck onto the swirl flaps. Now, when the swirl flaps gunk up, the pins end up dropping, and they end up dropping into your combustion chamber, which end up destroying this engine, as many of you guys know. This is why, if you want this engine to stay reliable, delete the EGR. Like I said, I've got a lot of people trying to tell me it will not pass MOT without this. It's bullshit. It will pass with this blanked. I've done it many times, and I've got people who have bought my old E39s with this all blanked off and still passing the MOT still today. MOT does not check for NOx emissions. Okay, that's the first thing that you guys need to know. Secondly, MOT testers are not allowed to start diddling under your bonnet and trying to see this and that and whatnot. You have an engine cover, as you guys would have seen, which covers the EGR, so they have no chance of even seeing if it's blanked or not in the first place. So when you get these cars, my best advice is to delete the EGR system immediately. It deletes here, and it deletes under the exhaust, which is under this turbo pipe right here, which goes to the exhaust manifold as well, which you're going to want to delete. It's got a little blanking plate. You guys would have seen in my video me fitting that and blanking it off. So make sure you blank the EGR off to protect your engine. The next one you want to do is get your manifold off, as you would have seen in my other video, and take your swirl flaps out and delete them. They are known for catastrophic failure, and they will kill and destroy your engine. Therefore, make sure you take them out. The next one on these, if you guys have a 535 diesel, you'll also know you've got the EGR cooler here with the thermostat. Them thermostats do like to fail, and they will fail, causing your car not to come up to temperature. Many of you guys already know that. It's a common problem on the M57. When they fail, your car don't come up to temperature, and that's not good for a diesel. Diesels must, and I mean must, always come up to temperature. It's crucial they come up to temperature, one for the turbo, one for the engine itself, to protect the engine so they're not running cold when they're boosting, and two, to make the whole engine emission friendly as well at the same time. That's why diesels must come up to temperature very quickly. Now, a lot of you delete the whole EGR cooler. That's fine. EGR cooler is only needed if you're keeping the EGR intact, which we're not, and we never would. So therefore, if you don't have that, then that's not an option for you guys. But if you are wanting to keep the EGR, get your EGR thermostat and get that changed, because if it sticks, your car will not come up to temperature, and many of you guys will know that it also damage your EGR system in the long run and damage your whole engine. The next one on these is the glow plugs and glow plug relay. Now, many of you guys would have seen when I took the manifold off, we changed all that which is underneath here, underneath the manifold. We changed all the glow plugs as well. They did come out very easy, but a lot of you guys were asking me how that was possible. One, I sprayed them in WD-40 and left them sitting for about 2 hours. Two, I'd already warmed the engine up prior to all that happening, so I'd already had the engine up to temperature. That's why they come out very easily, but as you saw, they're very squeaky. My best advice to remove them is to get the engine warm and spray them with WD-40. Now, there are a common problem. Many of you guys know the glow plug module likes to fail. When a glow plug module fails, you'll get all 6 glow plugs not responding, which then means your module is fried. If you don't have an 06 and you have before 2005, your glow plug module is going to sit up here in your ECU box, as many of you guys know. Now, that doesn't fail on the 2000 to 2004 models. As it sits in the ECU box, it's very rare it fails. If that fails, there'll be a 100 amp fuse in the glove box. When you take it down, that actually pops because of too much power being drawn from the glow plugs itself in cold weather. The glow plug module in there never actually fails, so do not think of changing that. If you do have symptoms for that, it will be your fuse in your glove box. But that's not the case on these, or the 535 diesels on the E60. The glow plug module sits right under here on a bracket, as many of you guys would have seen when I changed it, and it is not hard to get to with the manifold off. As you see, it sits right there on that bracket, as you can see it underneath. And we did change it for a brand new Beru one. It wasn't expensive, it was £130. We got it changed, and now the glow plugs are working and preheating the way they should. Now, my best advice is to change them, because it is very, very important that you get them changed to have a good, healthy running diesel engine. You guys know me, when I get these cars, I overhaul them all, as you guys would have seen. And I believe it's the best way to keep these cars running at their full optimum efficiency and to be on point. The next one on these is the injectors. Now, a lot of people like to say these fail. The only time I've ever known these injectors to fail, and let me be very, very frank with you, is based, again, on a remap. Because obviously, you're having to up the speed to timing up. You have to inject more fuel from these injectors, which in turn destroys the injectors. I always like to run a bottle of Forte every 10,000 miles to keep these running at the optimum efficiency. Now I've gone over to 160, 170k with not one issue on my original injector on a BM. So when I hear about all these people that are having problems with their injectors, I don't believe it, because it's just, I've never seen it before where people could have so many issues with injectors, because I know these cars like the back of my hand, especially this engine, and it's very, very rare that the injectors fail on these. And even if you go to a garage, they'll tell you the same. That's either for where you're running it too low on fuel, because as you guys know, diesel lubricates all the pumps on these cars, especially the high pressure fuel pump and everything else on the engine. And it can also get air into the injectors as well, which is not good, from where you're having to crank it too much to get the fuel back to the system. So again, it's not another good thing. But these very rarely fail, and if they do fail, you'll have a code for a misfire, and that's usually to do with the injectors, because as you guys know, it's not petrol, it doesn't have ignition coils, it doesn't have spark plugs. So there's only one reason why these could be actually misfiring, and it's either from a fuel pump itself on the way out or your injectors. But as I said, I've very, very rarely known these to fail. The next one to a reliable M57 engine is one thing. When I got this car, I think it was absolutely disgusting, was the air filter that sits in here had never been changed. I changed it out. Now, as many of you guys know who have an M57 engine, the air filter on these are quite expensive. They're around £25. And that's why a lot of people don't change them. They're also not easy to do on the X5, because you see how tight space it is to pull this panel out to get to it and to slot it back in, because you guys know the size of the air filter was about a whole length of this itself, so it's not easy to slot it back in. But the original owners never changed it, just pure laziness, and that can have a serious effect on the turbo, because obviously you guys know this is the air that's been pulled in and going direct to the turbo and also the engine, and it was filthy black when I took it out, and I mean filthy black, where someone had never changed it probably in the whole 80k, because it was an original BMW one. Same as the pollen filter, when I changed that, it was completely black and covered in crap, and it was an original BMW one as well when I got that out. That was disgusting. Make sure you change your air filter, because that's key to a reliable diesel engine. So please, if you do have a diesel engine, change your air filter, because the air is what is going to your turbo, and any crap is going to be fed to your turbo and fed to your engine also. The next one, as you'll see up here, I've got the Webasto, which you guys know preheats the engine and preheats the car before you come out on these. This is another repair we've got to do on this car, which is the Webasto unit, because this one's gone, as they do. They always tend to go on them, they tend to blow. We're going to be replacing that. But the next one is, if you guys know from the pre-2005 ones, which is 2002 to 2004, you'll have a diesel fuel filter here that you're meant to change as well. Now that's something I do recommend that you go and change. If you have that on your E39 or your E53, change that fuel filter, and it's got a little sensor on the top. Change that as well, because that sensor can stop your car actually functioning correctly and can actually stop your car starting. So make sure you change that sensor, and make sure you change that filter that sits on this corner here, where all the fuel lines, as you see here, are going to, and they all go to that fuel filter itself sitting on the side of the engine. Many of you guys will know exactly what I'm on about, and I know what I'm on about because I've had to change it millions of times on the pre-2005 ones, and they're an absolute nightmare, and they're cheap to change, so make sure you change them. The next one, key to a healthy running diesel engine, is to make sure your oil and filters are changed on time. Now when I bought this, the guy just put it for MOT. He said to me, you don't have to worry about service, the oil's just been changed 1,000 miles ago. You guys know me, I couldn't give two craps about what people tell me about it's been serviced. That when I hear that from people's voice, I don't even take that as anything gospel, because anyone can make up receipts. I changed the oil on this, the diesel was black. Now, the reason I chose to change that over as well is because when I bought this car, The guy had drove it so low onto the reserve, 40 miles, which many of you guys know you never ever drive these diesels onto empty, ever. Because they lubricate all the pumps and lubricate all the starting system on a diesel. So driving it to empty is not a good thing. So I knew straight away this car had been neglected, where he'd hardly ever used it as well. I changed the oil. The oil was completely black, and I do recommend to change that. I also changed the CCV vortex breathers, many of you guys know, which sits there, which is the oil breather system. Now, bearing in mind this one already had the latest one, so I do have a spare one now sitting there. I thought this one was going to have the loo roll type, which it never. It already has the upgraded vortex system, the upgraded part for these cars. So again, this is actually a more reliable unit because it doesn't have the swirl flaps. It has the upgraded vortex breather, therefore making this engine a lot more reliable. Now, the next one, if your car is struggling to come up to temperature when you put the radiators on, and a lot of you guys notice when you put the heating on, your temperature needle will drop back down into the cold. It's time to change your thermostat and water pump, which sits down there. Now, I've already done that on this. This is already done because I'm going to be using this all over the coming months, and I'm going to put on a lot of different miles on this car. So I've already changed it out, and I recommend to change the fan clutch as well. Do not listen to silly people who tell you to remove that because it's junk and it does nothing. BMW engineers, they were engineering planes before idiots on YouTube were coming along trying to redesign their engines. So do not listen to people, the likes of people like Nathan, who will try and tell you to out the clutch fan, and don't believe it does nothing, and to leave this little fan running. This fan only comes on in emergency, and many of you guys will know that. That clutch fan is designed when you're sitting in traffic. It will keep spinning, then once you get to a certain speed it will lock up to keep the engine cool. They do work wonders. I've never ever had an issue. The only people that get rid of them are people who are too cheap and too tight to replace the clutch on it itself. I replaced it with a whole brand new clutch, as many of you guys saw. I replaced the whole water pump, and I replaced the thermostat. And the reason a lot of people get rid of the clutch fan is because they seem to think that it knackers the bearing on the water pump. Well, the water pump is only about, I don't know, 35 pound. How are you going to argue with a water pump if it even lasts you 60,000 miles? 60,000 miles I think is brilliant. If you're going to be cheap, you should own these cars full stop. Don't try and redesign German engineering to save yourself money. You shouldn't be running these cars, and it don't look good for people when they're trying to say that, to remove this, remove that, to make yourself better. BMW are the engineers. The only thing I believe in removing on these diesels is the EGR system. That's about it. The rest of the stuff stays on the car, and obviously the swirl flaps, because they catastrophic to the engine, and look, even BMW recognised that and didn't put them on this car. The key here is this engine reliable? Well, that all goes down to you. This engine is very, very, very reliable, but it's all based on you. Lack of servicing is going to cause this engine to fail instantly. A lack of servicing as well will cause this engine just to run into the ground. These engines do not do well without proper servicing. As you guys know, they use a turbo. It's critical that all the filters are changed to prolong the life of the turbo, and also to give this car proper warm-up cycles before don't rag the crap out of it until it's fully warmed up. And obviously don't rag the turbo. It's the same for like an M5. Many of you guys should know this. It's common sense. Do not rag the crap out of it until the engine comes up to temperature. But there is a lot of idiots, and I even stated here, even in the UK, that buy these cars and you see them flooring their diesels, and then they're coming to me on YouTube begging me for my help because their car isn't running, or they're blowing blue smoke, or they don't know what to do, and it's all their fault. And a lot of you guys will probably already know I don't help you because you remap the car. It's your own fault. Deal with it. And that's the way. I'm sorry guys, I have to see it as, because I'm not there to sugarcoat you and help you keep your car on the road for you to keep treating it like a piece of crap. You're the ones who remapped it. You suffer the consequences of your actions. It's very simple. This car runs like an absolute dream. It's 80,000 miles. Very, very low mileage on the engine as well, and I'm enjoying every moment of it so far. It's all been fully serviced. It's ready for its next 60-70k, and it's ready to get me through. But this engine is super, super reliable. In the right hands, it is not expensive to look after. A lot of you are going to say, but it uses 5W30 oil. It is expensive, that's correct. If you can't afford oil, you shouldn't be owning any car, because oil is key for any engine, and the oil must be changed, and so should the filters. This for me is going to be done every 6,000 to 7,000 miles, and I mean every filter, including the air filter, including the oil filter, and any other filters we find, pollen filter, you know, any of them. They will all be changed, and that's purely because I like to look after my cars, and obviously it's got a turbo, and this will prolong the life of every single thing on this car. So I therefore will be doing all the filters. I'll also be using all the Forte products to clean out all the injectors, all the fuel system, because you don't know what anyone's put in it over the years. Therefore, I do all that to make sure the engine stays ultra reliable. Okay guys, as you've seen there now, the M57 diesel engine is a very, very reliable unit in the right hands. As I said, and this is the same for any BMW, this doesn't just apply for the diesels. Any BMW, regardless petrol or diesel, is reliable in the right, capable hands. But you get a lot of people who think they can just go and buy this and they can just service it the same way they would buying a Ford or a Vauxhall or a Kia or a Hyundai. And it does not work like that. It won't ever work on BMW. If you want one of these, you need to put the time and devotion into them. Garages are going to rip you off. Most of the garages don't even know what they're doing with this engine. Yes, the M57 engine is a very popular engine. Most garages should know by now what they're doing with this engine, but there is still a few that still don't understand this engine to its full integrity, and still even today. So if you guys are looking in the market for an M57 diesel engine, you've got to ask yourself two questions. Can I look after it? Am I willing to do the maintenance myself? And thirdly, can I afford the maintenance, and is it going to be reliable for me? Because if you don't do all these keep things, which is changing the oil regularly, you will end up with turbo failure, you will end up with engine failure, you will end up with injector failure, you will end up with a lot of failures because of neglect. I know how much garages charge for the swirl flaps. For me, like I said, most people I do this for, I only charge about £100 just to do the swirl flaps for them. EGR delete, I don't hardly even charge them anything. But you guys got to remember, for me, YouTube is paying me, so realistically the money isn't critical for me. And I know a lot of you guys are going to come to me, can I go do this, can I do that for your car? The question is no. I haven't got time to fit other people's cars in. I've got 3 of my own cars, a 4th coming, where I have to look after my own cars. I haven't got time to fit everyone else in to work on their cars. So the question is, I don't want to work on other people's cars. I just don't have the time and I don't have the space. My other garage I use, which is like my warehouse, I have over nearly 20 cars there that we're fixing at the moment. So I don't have space to fit anyone else in to be working on other people's crap. So I hope this is going to clear up the M57 reliability video. Thank you very much for watching this. BMW Dr. Dean here, and goodbye.